you so much for joining us. Just a quick message that the session is being recorded, okay? So it will be available on the STACS website, along with all kind of the materials that we've kind of gathered. Okay, we'll send them out to you. We'll make them available to you, and we'll try and make it as easy as possible for you to access that. Have you moved on to the next slide here? Return. Oh, I haven't. Let's see. Return to you. And that's us there. Okay.
Hi, everybody. So here's the plans for tonight. So between 7 and 10 past, you can see there, we're going to look at the, just a wee discussion, Common Pitfalls Advanced Hire Project, which we've spoke about. 10 past to quarter past, we're just looking at an intro, but the main thing we're going to move on to is the next one, which is our golden threads. They were originally called Gordon's golden threads. I quickly changed that, seeing as how he said it. 25 past, 25 to analysis pitfalls, and then we're going to look at design pitfalls, quarter to 8 to 10 to implementation pitfalls, and then testing evaluation. We think we'll be finished about 5 past 8.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? We've not run through it yet. So
we'll just see. We'll wing it and see.
We'll head back for the after party.
Yeah.
So
Right.
first thing to do is everybody click a wee white note, change the colour, and let us all know who's here.
Yeah, if you can also let us know just where you're from. That's always really interesting. And the furthest away person wins a prize. I don't know what that prize is yet, but they'll get something. I'll do the same here. And I know those who are maybe watching an iPhone or whatever, it gets a bit fidgy at this point. But where have we got? We've got Glasgow, Canusi, Isla Barra. There you go. One. We were not going to have a meeting out in Barra last year. Was that not the plan? So just a reminder, kind of, as we're kind of going through Miro, I would just recommend to kind of follow the presenter as much as possible. So if you ever kind of get split up or lost from the group, there should be a button at the bottom. It's Deborah who's presenting. Just hit return to Deborah. Whatever slide she's on, you will ping straight back to her. If you want to use any reactions or anything like that, you absolutely can throughout the whole presentation. We will also have kind of other boards like this sporadically spread about. So we'll kind of just ask your opinions, we'll ask you to kind of ask questions or anything that you don't get. Because we know people kind of don't like sometimes talking, although you, of course, are welcome to talk. But we'll also give you these boards throughout the presentation.
Right, so hi everybody. So most of you know me, I'm Debbie Kennedy. I've been a teacher at St Kentigern's now for 28 years, been teaching advanced hire for 25, oh dear. And I'm a writer and I'm a senior marker on the advanced hire team. So what we're going to look at is these things we call the golden threads, and they're really important because they go all the way through the projects. So let's just start at what it says in the markers, the course report. So what you can see from here is it's talking about the number of requirements and about how excessive they can be. There are some pupils who hand in, and it just becomes difficult for us to mark and difficult for them to take them all the way through, because you can see from the rest of the highlighted bit, it's talking there about them at each of the stages.
I see there you've highlighted that the pupils are generating too many requirements.
That's right. So for example, David, last year there was one pupil who had over 40 functional requirements. That's really difficult for not only for us to mark, to find, it's, to overlook them, but it's really difficult for them to track them all the way through the design, implementation, and the testing stage.
Yeah, that must have been like super time consuming for the students to get it all together. Hopefully they got it in time anyways. But the second highlight is mentioning the difficulty with the pupils' evidence all of the requirements. So, that sounds like it's having a negative effect. It's not that they're not doing it, it's just they're not evidencing it at all.
That's right? Absolutely. Before we look at the marking scheme, what we'll do is we'll have a wee quick look at the template. And I think it's good for teachers and pupils to have a good understanding of why the template has been created.
Mhm.
So you can see here's the marking scheme at the moment.
Okay.
And you can see the number of marks that are actually going to these requirements going all the way through. And you can see from there that there are in fact, I think it's 37 marks. And sorry, I jumped down to the bottom one. I've just realised what I've done. I've opened up the marking scheme instead. It's the marks are 37. That's a lot of marks for pupils to be losing. If I take away the top one, there's the template.
Okay. Yeah, I've been using that template with my students. So I know, like, you want a maximum, like, is it 6 user requirements and 24 functional requirements? And I mean, some of my pupils have been working with, to try and like rein in the program, but others are then struggling to try and get to that 30.
And I'm the same, but the pupils need to remember that it is a maximum.
Right. Okay.
We don't expect every pupil to have 30 functional requirements. Some of my pupils, like for example, for integration, they've maybe only got 3. That's okay, because as long as they're meeting the advanced higher requirements for the integration, right, that's absolutely fine. So for example, pupils don't need to have a lot of queries. So pupils who are, if you're doing a software project, you don't have to be selecting, updating, deleting. You only need to do a select. So as long as they have been designed, implemented, tested, and evaluated, one query is actually enough.
Right, okay. And you mentioned marking scheme you brought up earlier. What do we need to look out for in the marking scheme? What's that?
Well, so the marking scheme is that it's the way they lose the marks is by not following these golden threads all the way through, especially when they create a really complex program, because of course all of their time and effort goes into implementation.
Yeah, okay. That's a lot of marks to lose if they don't evidence it, in the requirements, and it doesn't go all the way through. That's plenty of marks.
It absolutely is. And it can be quite hard for them to track the requirements. So what I did was, when I was marking, I sat down to mark and I was finding it really tricky because you're having to go backwards and forwards. So what I did was I came up with my own template.
Right. Okay.
And it wasn't really a template at the time. It was an A4 pad of paper. And what I did, my A4 pad of paper, every pupil, I would write down all of their functional requirements. I found them, and then I would go along and I would tick them off. Last year, Gordon said, why don't we get them to put down the page numbers? Because then it's easier for us to go, right, there it is, it's definitely there. And also it meant that when it came to marker checks and it came to those, it was easy for us to then see where they were.
So I can see that'd be quite good for students also, not just like for markers, but for like students to keep track of the requirements, so that they'll even spot the bits and the evidence that they don't have. I mean, how are know that? Yeah. So I mean, is there anything to stop us from using something similar with our classes? Is that a markers only thing, or can you encourage people to do this too?
No, we absolutely can use it. So what I'm going to do is this one that I've done, I'm going to send that over to Brendan, and he's going to put it onto the STACS Connected website, and he'll also put it onto the STACS website, so it will be available for everybody. And honestly, if you think that this will help your pupils accessing those full 37 marks, please use something similar. But do you know what to do? Pop it in with their projects, because when it comes to us marking, we can see what pages things are on, and we can see exactly where everything is. And it helps us not miss something.
Okay, so we need to make sure that the golden threads are evidenced throughout the whole documentation, right? So we've got that, but what about the analysis? So is there any kind of pitfalls or any pointers that we can implement? I mean, we've only got a few weeks to go. Is there anything pointers just now about analysis that we can look at?
Right, of course. So let's maybe look at what the course document says.
Okay.
So if you look at the top one, first you see here that when you're describing the advanced higher concepts, there's often a lack of detail.
Right, okay. And I see in the same point from the 2023 report as well, speech bubble on the bottom right there, it says that's obviously something that we need to work on.
Yep, and I know that my students, they often just write the advanced higher concepts. They don't have any description. They basically take it straight out of the document. So what we need to do is we need to fix, that's one thing that we need to fix. So let's move over to the right hand, the middle one. And what it says there is that the subtasks aren't being broken down and they're not specific to their individual projects.
Okay, yeah. And there's another point here that says that they're often missing out some of the resources as well. So the project plan is something that I should really be looking at with my students.
Absolutely. And you can see for the final bubble, it's also about the project plan. And it's really an easy extra marker too for pupils to get if they nail the project plan. So what we'll do now is we'll just have a wee look at, first of all, the description, and we'll see how we can make that better.
Okay. Can I just double check as well, just before we move on, is everybody still in the Miro? If we're having any Miro issues, are people managed to follow along? If you've just joined the Miro, if you hit the follow Deborah, she's presenting right now, that should ping you to the slide that we're on. Look at all those thumbs up. Thank you. What a lovely bunch. Thank you. Great. Okay. If there's any issues, please just either write in the Google chat, speak up, or let us know. Okay. Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks so much for that wee reminder, David.
Yep, the bot. Okay, so I see on this page we have the details from the template that we should be included in the description.
That's right. So candidates are instructed
Okay.
to include the problem of the description, and also they've got to identify the advanced hire concepts and the integration, and the other bullet point is about their constraints. So let's have a wee look at some of the usual responses that we get from candidates, and tell me if these are what you see from your.
Okay. I mean, I've seen a few software development projects, and yeah, that looks like pretty common statements.
Right. So there's your. They're going to have a subquery. Doesn't tell us what subquery does.
Yeah. Okay.
They connect to the web page. So that's one of them. Let's take away that one. So here's our have a 2D array.
Pretty vague.
Yeah. So let's have a wee look at how we can start to make them better. So have you have a 2D array? What could we do to make that one a little bit better? If I delete this slide.
Okay. Use a 2D array to store the leaderboard. Yeah, okay, a bubble sort. Yeah, okay. From what I can see here, I mean, we should be expecting candidates to say like how the concept is actually going to be used in the project. So the 2D array will be used, for the leaderboard, and also it links to the 2D array and the higher, the standard algorithm. Am I right in saying that the advanced higher data structure must be used within the advanced higher standard algorithm?
It absolutely must. We often, a lot of times we see they've got an advanced higher data structure, they've got their bubble sort, or their binary search, their insertion sort, but what they don't do is put them together. We often see there's their algorithm done with a 1D array, and they're marks for that. So they've got the construct, they've got the data structures, and they've got the algorithm. They're just not putting them together.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so let's look at the next one. So when we do the connection to the database.
Okay, connection will be made from my program to the database to read in the top 10 entries of the leaderboard. All right, okay, so the previous point, can you talk about leaderboard? So if we have to carry that forward, as this is kind of a software development project, I mean, I would guess something along the lines of, you need to connect the database so that the leaderboard can then be read into the program.
Yep, and that's exactly what it says there. We need to just make sure that we're given a better description of what's going on with that. And then we've got our run SQL queries.
Okay.
And if we...
So
there's two examples.
An SQL statement will be used. Okay, that makes sense. So the last one, can you talk about SQL? So no, you'd want them to identify what kind of type of SQL statement is being used and why it's being used.
That's right. So it's not just about writing down that concept.
Yeah.
We have to discuss why things are being used.
Okay.
Right. I'll take away one more. So here is our web. Now, session variables, as you're going to see as we go through, they're not always done to the best. So let me just, if I jump up and delete. Oh,
Okay.
sorry,
You went too far.
I'd went. So here is what we think of the session variable. What do you think of that?
Okay, so my website will use a session variable to store the user's username once they have connected to and logged in to the database. When the user logs out, the session will end. So, I mean, see the session. So, okay. So before, let's see. So the session variables here. I think is that all right? I mean, the website will use a session variable to store the user's username once. Yeah, I think that's all right. Yeah, that's okay. I can see that they're doing that. All right, yeah.
And there's not any design in there. Sometimes, as you know, when they'll mix up some design, there's no design. It is just, this is my session variable. This is the session variable. This is how I'm going to use it. No other information about it. Right.
Okay.
So the next one is your media query. Do you want to have a guess as to what should be included?
Okay. The media query, right? So my website. Oh, right. Okay. Well, I'm not sure about this one. Let's get a look. So, are you talking about the kind of? Are you talking about what changes will be made about different sizes, or?
Right. Yep. The different sizes. Yeah. There we go. I've given an example as well of a change that would be made. And we want to see about the sizes that we're going to include in there.
Okay. Okay, that really kind of clarifies what we should be expecting from our students. Okay, I get that. I mean, is that helping everybody? Do you think that's kind of fair? Looking at what pupils do right and looking at really what we're expecting the pupils to be writing in a lot more kind of detail, and it needs to be tied much more in with the project that they're actually doing rather than just writing the concepts down verbatim.
That's right, and everybody will get a wee chance to do some feedback at the end of this block. So if you just give us a couple of wee minutes and we'll get there.
Right, okay, that's fine. Okay, so that's us finished with the description. What else is there? What's next there then?
Not quite finished it yet. There's another thing that we need to look at.
Okay.
So let's have a wee look at this frame. So you can see there's only 2 points on here. Just a reminder to everybody, scope and boundaries were removed from the project, and I think it was 2-3 years ago, but we're still receiving projects that have got scope and boundaries in it, which means that pupils are wasting time completing these sections when they could be doing other things.
That must be frustrating, and they're doing that work and the markers can't give them any marks for it.
Exactly. Honestly, it kind of breaks you when you're marked that happens, that they've done all this work and you cannot give them the marks. So please, we need to make sure that everyone is following the up-to-date project booklet, that I've got the descriptions and the checklist, the new template that's been released, because if they do that, then they cannot go wrong. Yeah,
that's all on the SQA website, I assume, yeah?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And of course, the last one is, please to remember that all inputs must be validated, and that is an advanced hire concept.
Okay, so that, okay, does that mean that they should list all the inputs and how they're going to validate every single one?
Not at this point, because we do that at functional requirements. So at this point, it's okay just to have in there validating all the inputs.
All right, so they can use that vague statement, and then later on they'll kind of go into that. Okay, that's fine.
Right. So move on to UML.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. So, I mean, I've noticed, right? I'm just going to come in here, right? I've noticed my students either put like too many use cases in or too little. So, like, do you find that when marking?
We absolutely do. And,
right, okay.
And the thing with that is, that's when you can spot that a child has done it retrospectively. Right. The minute there's loads in there, they have done it retrospectively because there's way too much detail. So what we need to do is we need to emphasise that the information that's represented in the use case diagram is, in fact, it should tie up with your user requirements. They need to marry up.
Okay.
It shouldn't be the procedures and the functions from your program.
Mhm.
And I often find that my students as well, because they're doing them either retrospectively or they're going back and updating them, it's procedures and it's functions that I'm seeing that's inside there for the project. Sorry, for programs.
Okay. Most of my pupils do databases, but I can see why software, development pupils would think to do that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense when you're talking to them, because that's what they're thinking about. They're
Mhm.
thinking about the procedures, they're thinking about the functions. The other error is that students forget to add in any files that they're not the database as an actor. So
Right.
if they've got a CSV file, or if the program is outputting an HTML page,
Mhm.
that has to be an actor as well, and those are often excluded.
Okay. What about now, like exclude and extend? No, people's kind of often confuse those two.
They do, but the good news is they are not required for the project.
Hey, that's good news. I like that.
Absolutely.
Right.
They'll win their exam, but they're not required for the project.
Okay. Okay. So I'll make sure people know that. That's the first thing I would tell them. Okay, there are a couple of small things that can kind of help to get another mark, maybe possibly two. So that leaves us with the project plan, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So,
Gantt chart.
and I have made a very pretty Gantt chart.
It looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
However, it's actually going to get 0 marks.
Oh, even though it looks so good.
It looks absolutely amazing. It took me ages that, but it's going to get no marks. So would you like to guess why?
Oh, so Gantt charts should show subtasks and timings. I mean,
Yep.
this does both, so that means that there's something wrong with them. Looking at the subtasks, they are the ones from the marking schemes. Yeah,
Yep, they are.
is that right? Yeah, okay.
And because of that, they are not specific to the actual project that's being developed. And
Okay.
therefore, I'm afraid they're not going to get any marks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Again, loads of marks. So there's nothing getting awarded for their subtasks at that point because they have not made it personal to their project.
Okay. Wow. Right. So,
What
okay.
about
What's that? Sorry?
sorry, what about the scheduling? The time?
Right. So, okay. So I'm looking and I can see that the times when they've worked, it seems that they've worked like quite a lot. Did they take any breaks?
According to this, they didn't even have Christmas Day off.
Oh, well, maybe they're super keen.
They've worked over Christmas, they've worked over New Year, they've worked the October holiday, they have had absolutely no break. So yet again, they're getting 0 marks because these
Right.
times are not accurate. So
Okay.
they can't get the marks. They've just put something together really quickly without any proper thought.
It's a token exercise, really. I mean, fair enough, they've totally made that up.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything we need to know, like for resources? Mine's usually just write a list down.
Yep, so do mine. Because obviously, well, you can't do it in a Gantt chart. Not that all mine do Gantt charts, but yes, they just usually write them underneath. To be honest, though, resources are usually well handled.
Okay.
Some things that they might forget, and I've seen this a couple of times, is and especially people who've got a web element to the project, they actually forget to write down a browser.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They get everything
Yeah,
else in,
okay.
but they forget the browser. Now, something else that I have put in this Gantt chart, and I've meant to say was I've put in the analysis. You don't have to include that in the Gantt chart, but if people, sorry,
Because I mean, writing the Gantt chart's part of the analysis, really.
correct.
Right.
So it's from design onwards. However, if they put in analysis, they don't lose marks.
Got it. Okay. If you want to kind of give us some feedback on the golden threads, some feedbacks on analysis, you could also use this board to kind of ask any questions or dive into any details that we kind of just went over there. So I'll give you a kind of minute or two. If you're all good, give us a wee thumbs up. But we'll also just give you a wee minute to type anything that you need to type.
Sorry, we use the phrase people lose marks. People don't lose marks.
I know, I'm sorry.
Access marks that are available.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Okay. I think we've got no more questions coming up. So if we'll move on now, we're kind of going to look at the design section just now. So that you'd kind of looked at a little bit there of an analysis. We look at the kind of design, and at the start we're kind of going to get into databases now. I mean, I've got some of my, I'd say most of my pupils choose databases as their main focus for their project. I mean, do you see that often as marketers?
Well, not really. We usually see software or web-based projects are the main focus, David.
All right, okay. I mean, why is that? Why is that? I think databases is amazing. So why is that?
Well, it's hard to say. Maybe because pupils and teachers are just more familiar with software since it's the sort of larger part of the course. I'm not sure about web because I definitely do database more with my pupils rather than web. I guess it just comes down to individual teachers and maybe their sort of degree of focus. Maybe software and web seems safer than a big database project. But database projects can be just as valuable if done properly. And indeed, some of the resources and things you were shown us recently on your database is just brilliant.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, what are some of the kind of common design mistakes then that pupils who are kind of using databases as their main focus, what kind of design things go wrong?
Well, there's definitely quite a few things that stand out straight away. One of the biggest things is that candidates often fail to include a query design for every query that they use. It seems like it's so basic a thing that we shouldn't even mention it, but believe it or not, we see it so frequently. We also sometimes see query designs that weren't actually included in the implementation or weren't required.
Right, okay.
So they've possibly over planned as to what they'd be able to achieve, and maybe when it came to implementation they didn't have enough time, and then they haven't gone back and removed those queries that they didn't need to use.
Okay.
So it's a reminder to them, as with anything, if they manage to implement what they need to, and there's been some excess in there that they didn't actually get round to or decided not to put in, they should go back and take it out of their design and not leave it there. Because, and obviously go right back to the golden thread, go right back to the beginning and look at their description and so on, and make sure it's consistent right the way throughout. So
that kind of ties in with the golden threads thing again. Okay. I mean, I can remember, I think it was last year, Stacks issued some pretty handy templates about kind of the query designs, and kind of so that the pupils could use these sheets. I think that's them on the slide there. Absolutely,
we've got the link there on the slides. For anybody that doesn't have them yet, then it's great. Go ahead, download them now.
Can I ask? I know they were issued for hire, and I use them in my higher class. But I mean, do they work okay for advanced higher concepts too?
Absolutely. Pupils just need to be thorough and make sure that every single query in their project is properly designed. But absolutely, these templates are great, I think.
Okay, amazing. That's brilliant. I'll make sure that they've got access to them. Okay, I mean, is there anything else we need to look out for when kind of doing design and databases as a main focus?
Yes, there is. Surprisingly, pupils often forget to include their pseudocode for their database connection. And in fact, I come back to this when I get to talking about SDD and talking about connections. Whether it's from their PHP files or from their chosen programming platform, they just often forget to put it in.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, so every time that they connect, do they need to do a design for every time they connect?
Well, it depends. It depends on how they've done it. Okay. If they've included the connection in a separate connection PHP file, and they've used include to bring it onto each page, then they only need to do their design once.
Okay.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
is probably the most efficient in terms of the write-up, isn't it? Because they're only designing that once and using
Yeah,
it.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but if the pupil hasn't done it that way, they haven't used include, if they've retyped their connection code on each of their pages, then their design should reflect that.
Okay.
Okay, so for every page that has a query, there should be at least a line of pseudocode to represent a database connection to be opened and a database connection closed. For anybody that wants to have a wee look at this, then have a look at the 2023 Understanding Standards event materials, because there were some good examples made available at those meetings.
Amazing. Thanks, Fiona. That was really good so far. No, thank you. So we've looked at the pseudocode of kind of databases and the connection. We've looked at the query designs. How about data dictionaries? I mean, they seem easy enough.
Absolutely. Data dictionaries are definitely okay. I'm moving on here. So for anybody that's not following me, you can come back and just follow me as presenter at the moment. Absolutely, database dictionaries, they are done. They're done, quite well. But there are definitely a few marks here and there that are getting thrown away. And to me, I'm always like to the pupils, this is a fairly straightforward thing. We want to get all the easier stuff, if you like, with comments behind it. We don't want to throw away any of those marks so that you can afford to lose a few marks on the really difficult stuff.
Yeah, of course.
So on this board here, we've got the data dictionary, and it's first of all, there's a wee reminder there about the attribute data types. We need to see that they're using the correct advanced higher database attribute types in their data dictionaries. And it's a little thing, but I suppose it's easy for them to miss.
That's fine.
Well, yeah, so if they move on from text to varchar, for instance, number becomes either integers or floats, depending on what they're using. The same with booleans, becomes booleans and integers, and dates. We now have dates, times, and date time. So just a wee one for them to watch out for when they're doing their data dictionary.
Okay, well, I've got a question. So, I've got a pupil who is actually doing a database, but they're doing it in Access. So, shouldn't they be using Access field types when they're doing their data dictionary?
Well, no, we need to see the correct advanced higher attribute types being used, as opposed to any sort of application package specific ones. Okay,
got it. Okay, so text becomes char, and I'm all fine with that. No, thanks very much. Great.
Okay. Oh, and the other one, another basic one there, we've got a wee key symbol just to remind us that sometimes they forget their primary and foreign keys, despite the fact they've been doing that since N5. So just for them to cast a very careful eye around their data dictionary.
Okay, brilliant, thanks.
Okay, so hopefully everybody found that helpful. And now I'd like to move on to the SDD to software major projects and have a wee look at some of the things that we see candidates losing marks on. Well, I'm using that term again, the losing marks, where candidates could access more marks. Potentially.
All right. Is there many things that can crop up when marking these?
Well, there can be. To begin with, one of the things that we've seen every year is that candidates attempt far too complex and large scale a project, and it seems to be in particular for software. And quite often it seems to be for software where they've made games. Not solely, but that can be quite often. I mean, one of the ones that sticks in my mind, and Debbie, you'll probably remember this, is when I got the one where they were doing the Cluedo. Do you remember that one? they had something like, they talked about there was 65,000 different possibilities that were going to be needing to be
How
programmed.
do you test that? Yeah.
Well, yeah, needless to say, they didn't actually manage to do almost
No.
any of it. And it was a shame, because if they had just reduced the scope an awful lot and brought it down to something manageable, I was quite excited when I opened it, and I thought, oh, this could be a really nice wee project. But I think this year, and everything cut out, my computer, my internet, everything cut out right at the beginning. So sorry about that, because I've missed a wee bit there. But that comes back to the new template, which I just think is so very useful, so much better, because it's really getting the candidates to think very carefully about their requirements, isn't it? And just scale everything back a bit into something that hopefully is manageable for them, a project that they're going to actually be able to complete.
Okay. You know, how big it was? I mean, that sounds massive. I mean, how many pages were in that?
Well, some of us, I mean, we've seen up to 300 pages.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know who marked the 300 pager last year, Debbie. Do you remember?
I think it might have been Morag and Gordon. We were quite lucky last year.
I think so. Gordon, were you one of the people? Yeah.
No, that's quite big. All right, okay.
Yeah,
So,
but I think with the new template, that should hopefully really improve on that one.
Okay,
But
so
anyway, moving on. Here's the course report I've got up. And I've just taken 4 things out of it. So of course, it's just a reminder, it's 20 marks that can be accessed for this. So I've got 4 things here in our speech bubbles. First one is that some candidates applied their advanced higher algorithm, but they applied it to a 1D array, despite the fact that they had identified that they were going to use an advanced higher data structure in their problem description. So they knew they had to use one, they explained that they were going to use it, and then frustratingly, they didn't use the algorithm on it. They actually used the algorithm on a 1D array instead. And to my shame, I actually had a pupil that did that last year. And it was a very nice project, but he completely missed that. And yeah, it went in like that. So obviously there was marks there that he couldn't access because of that. If I go across the top, let's go across the top and we'll look at the second one. So many candidates didn't provide a top-level design of their solution with the data flow included on it.
okay.
And again, that's quite a frustration, because of course we spend quite a lot of time at higher, don't we, talking about data flow and going into it in detail, since it's new learning for them at higher. And it's just, for some of them, it has gone out the window when they get to the advanced higher and they're doing this design here. They just miss that out. Moving down to the third one here, many candidates didn't provide enough evidence to show that they considered all the requirements at the design stage. So they were just too light on the detail. There was just things missing. And fourth here, most candidates omitted the details that were needed to show error messages produced by the input validation. So Debbie, you had referred to input validation earlier. And on software, I think that candidates knew they were aware they had to use them, they had talked about them. Most of them put some input validation in at least, but they didn't put it into the design. In particular, they didn't show us the details of what they had designed for instance, error messages. And that was just completely missing. Yes. Yeah.
Well, all right. Can we look at these in a bit more detail? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay.
So on the applying the advanced higher algorithm to an advanced higher data structure. For that, of course, just as a reminder, we're looking for them to use their binary search or an insertion sort or a bubble sort. And that's fine. In general, that was pretty well done. However, the bit where it fell down was they had to make sure that they'd applied it to an appropriate data structure.
Mm-hmm.
So for a procedural program, we're looking at a 2D array or an
2D.
array of records. Yeah.
Okay.
If they have gone down the route of object-oriented programming, then they need to be using an array of objects in that.
Okay. Okay.
And although they might have a 1D array in it and have used that for something else, the slippery slope is that they use that with their algorithm.
Okay, so they're allowed 1D arrays. They're allowed in the project, but it doesn't count towards the marks.
No,
they need to
they can't-
use it within their advanced
access
algorithm.
marks exactly if
Yeah.
they've applied
Okay.
they have applied the algorithm to that.
It's just the algorithm needs to be
Yeah,
on a
and that's
2D.
exactly
Got it.
what one of mine did last year. It was a lovely wee game that he'd done. He had used his 2D array for the game board. It was one of those, you know, the boxes game where you complete the dots and you make a box and you're the winner of that box kind of thing. So he'd used his 2D array and that was all grand. He'd set it out with his dots and completing the lines and colouring it 2 different colours depending on who the winner was. And then foolishly, he didn't apply his algorithm to it.
Okay. Okay. The second point you can mention was the lack of data flow in their design. Is that
Yes,
right?
let's move on to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so absolutely, their top level design doesn't include data flow. This is a very common thing we see in software development projects.
And is it any different? So, like, is advanced higher data flows different from higher data flows?
No, it is just like higher. So, no, as I was saying, the data flow is basically just as they have learned it at higher. So I'll put in a wee higher example here. So they should be doing their top level algorithms, adding the data flow to them, and then after that doing their refinements as needed.
Okay, so
small point, but one that we need to see.
No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, also, am I wondering, is there issue with candidates? Can you just not producing pseudocode that you're looking for?
There is, and a bit like Debbie talking about reverse engineering earlier on. We see this quite a lot in the pseudocode for programming. So we'll see that their pseudocode is presented just exactly line for line as their coding is, as their, for instance, Python is. It's just that they've maybe added some line numbers to it. And it's definitely been reverse engineered. We've probably, I think there's some applications or websites online on where you can actually try to do this, isn't there? And they probably think that they're going to save themselves some time by doing it. And it never works out well for them, because one of the dangers with doing that is back to the golden threads again, where if they have done it correctly and they've started with their description and the requirements at the analysis stage, then that just naturally leads through, doesn't it, to design?
Yep.
And those requirements should form the top of their algorithm, shouldn't it, as to what their program's going to do.
Okay.
And then it be data flow being added, so as they're thinking about how their parameter passing and so on, and then expanding that out and adding in the refinements.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. Am I right in saying one of your other points was about validation as well?
Absolutely.
I mean, candidates learn input validation at National 5 level, so surely they've got it dialed in.
Yes,
no?
And you know, they understand validation. They know they have to put it in. They include that, and then when they go to do it at the design stage, they are just lacking on the details. So they don't show, for instance, the error messages that are going to be triggered. They don't, detail that.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. And again, it's a small point, but it's just one that we need to see from them. The other thing that I find that they do quite a lot is confuse validation and verification. So when they are connecting, say, to a database, for instance, and there may be, quite often it's with a game that they've written, and they want to check once the user logs in that that user does exist in the table. And they'll put that through as input validation, but of course it's not input validation. Basically, they're just checking to see that that user ID already exists, aren't they? So, and that's absolutely fine. That's a requirement, but it's just not.
It's not validation.
It's not covering the input validation on its own, where you might be looking at other things. For instance, the format of the, the user ID, for instance, that you want to validate.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, no, thanks very much. Okay, can you tell me then about what kind of drawbacks do we have about classes and object-oriented programming? So what mistakes do candidates make when they're designing the classes?
Well, generally, in terms of their classes, the problems arise where they have made use of functionality that's included in an application. And I hate to hark back to the whole games programming again, because quite a lot of my guys do love doing a games program, but because there's functionality built in there where they can, for instance, just generate a whole class of sprites, for instance, or a whole class of media assets, for objects or whatever, for obstacles in their game, then they are not designing the classes for themselves. They're not using a class as it should be used, shall we say. They're using inbuilt functionality, which is provided. So they're not designing the class. They're not thinking about the attributes and the methods that are going with that class. And they're not thinking about their use of their advanced higher algorithm with the class.
Do you see problems with them applying the advanced higher algorithm for these classes?
Yes, potentially they're not doing that. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because they're taking too much as given from the inbuilt environment that they're programming in.
Okay. And I mentioned earlier about, like, if somebody's doing databases as their main project, a lot of them aren't doing the database connection with no other kind of their secondary topic. Are you finding that the same when you're kind of designing programming project? Okay.
Yes.
So
And again,
just connections across the board.
For instance, Python, of course, has it inbuilt, doesn't it, to connect to your database? So it's inbuilt, it's handy for them, but they need to stay away from it because they don't think it through. They're not designing out what they're going to need to use to establish a connection. So they're not thinking about user ID, password, and so on. All the details that we need to see in their design.
Okay, well, I think that was all the points you made. So is that us for software design? So we've looked at designing software, we've looked at designing databases. Let's look at web now, if that's all right. Deb, do you want to take on the web?
Right, so we've got the feedback again from the course reports.
Okay.
And just having a wee look at these speech bubbles, we can see what's causing the pupils' problems. And the key things are the session variables, the media queries, and the user interface design.
Right, so I was looking through this, okay, and I noticed that the course report mainly talks about design.
Yep, it does, and there's a great reason for that. Here's some positivity coming out tonight, is that's because the majority of the children do really well in the implementation, especially in web. It's usually handled really well.
Okay, always good to know. Right, okay, so where will we start then looking at this then?
Let's have a wee look at the user interface.
Right, okay. Okay, nice login form in a browser, but I mean, there's no examples of like inputs or outputs or underlying processes. It looks nice, but I don't kind of know what it does.
Yep, so I've not really done the examples of the inputs and outputs because that is something that is usually done well.
All right, okay.
Right, so what we want to look at is the underlying processes. That's the bit that the children are struggling with. And sometimes what they do in the form is they try to put too much on the form.
Okay.
So what we want to look at just now is, let me take away the top one. What I've done is, you can see I've put the numbers round, and you'll see that online. They draw the template out, they put the numbers round, and then they make notes on the numbers. So if I remove the top layer, again, the pupils are trying to fit it all in, the CSS, the inputs, the outputs, the processes, it's on the same page. They're writing so tiny. We're having to get out magnifying, turn our phones into magnifiers. It can be hard to see. So it would be better, if, for want of a better word, if it was, they could possibly put them down, maybe a section off a bit of the page, something like that, to make it easier for us to see.
Okay. And you're making it clear that external CSS is being used.
I am, because that is something that comes back, is that sometimes children are forgetting to use external. Now,
So even in the design phase, you need to kind of make that obvious.
I'm not sure, if I'm honest with you, if they just put it in, they would get the marks, right?
Okay.
I'm just putting it here because they're still some of them are doing internal, and I think it's possibly because they've maybe studied database in 5th year, but they want to do a web project because it can make it look really pretty.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So if you look at number 3 and 4, and you can see there that it's the username and the password, and these have been validated, and we're clearly stating what the validations are.
Okay. So in the course report, it says the underlying processes are lacking detail. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yep, it's saying that, so it's saying there is validation, but not what validation is. So that's what we mean by the lacking in detail.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm wondering if a conversation that we aren't having is that when you've got your design done, you should be able to hand that off to the development team, and they should be able to take the design and create software straight from there.
On that, sorry, I'm jumping in here, and I must say I've seen my guys doing a bit of trying to be helpfully reverse engineer it after they've done the top level design of what the web's going to do, but lacking a bit of detail. They've then gone back after they've implemented it and added in the names, for instance, of the functions that are going to run to produce the functionality, but it's still not written down the details on the design.
That's a common one, isn't it, Fiona?
Yeah, I've seen that so often.
Right, so if we look at number at 5 and 6, we're moving on to the buttons.
Okay.
So the underlying processes that we're going to run, we're going to look at number, if I take this away, for number 5. And we've said in here the file that's running.
So submit the file.
Yep.
Okay.
And we've said exactly what's going on inside it. And I've also put in some information. I put some information in there about the session variable. You don't have to put information in there about the session variable as long as they're designed somewhere.
Okay, so that makes sense if it's all coming from that script that it's being run.
Correct. So in the final notes, if we remove this one, that's all about the cancel button, the logo, image, and the home button.
Okay, so the cancel button resets the form, the size and name of the image, and the page of the home button goes to, okay, that's all fine. So really it's the validation processes and the submit button processes that need a bit of work.
I would say so, yes.
Okay, what about the kind of media queries? It said that there were some issues there.
I was going to jump in and ask about that one as well.
So media queries, let's have a wee look over here.
Okay. I mean, pupils have to do another drawing for each of the user interface, for each different size.
Oh, absolutely not. What we would suggest, so you've done all your user interface for the big screen for the browser. So what you could do is one drawing to show what it would look like. So the way I've done it there on that phone, you can see there that it's vertical. And then what to do is, as long as we've got the media query design, the trigger, and as long as we've got what the effect is, and one of the things that's suggested is that you could possibly use a comparison table, and in one you've got your greater than the 600, px, and in the other one you've got the max size of 600 px to explain what the difference is. But you've also got like maybe one drawing of it so you can visually see what that looks like.
Okay, that makes total sense. So like a UI design for every web page, full browser size, but then information about the trigger.
Yes.
Right, okay. That makes sense. I get that.
Right, okay. So we look at the site navigation.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's go.
So you don't often see a bad site navigation. That's kind of because they're often missed out though.
Oh, that's what you would rather see a bad one.
So this diagram, I've actually stolen this from the Understanding Standards 2023 materials. And what it does, it clearly shows the session variables in here, because again, session variables are something that are not designed. Clearly shows the session variables, it clearly shows what pages that they're used on, and it also shows the movement between the pages.
Okay, so really from higher, the only new element is the session variable that I can see. Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
That's it, but there's also a post if you
okay.
need that. But there isn't a requirement for post, but we do need the session variable, and it can either be on here or somewhere with a list of the pages that it can be accessed on as needed. And earlier, you know, I spoke about what was going to be getting stored in the session variable. We need that too. Now, whether that's within other design or whether that's in a document underneath, that's fine. But as long as the session variables are on the structure and then a description elsewhere, that's what we need to see.
Yes, I mean, so navigation's not hard. It's just we need to remind the kids to actually do it.
That's right. Just make sure that they submit it in, add in the same as what you did at Hire, add in the session variables, and that's us. We're happy.
No bother. Done. Happy with that. What else have we got then for web?
So our last slide is our pseudocode.
All right. Is there a lot of pseudocode needed for the web element?
So for the pseudocode, then we should have your pseudocode done for all of your PHP because it is a high-level language. So therefore,
that makes sense.
We should have a TLA. We should have refinements, and they should obviously fit in with our functional requirements. Again, we're bringing our golden threads all the way through, making sure that they're all there. And you can see that over at the side, this is worth up to 15 marks to access.
That's a lot of marks.
And while that is for all of the design, we have to make sure that they're accessing these marks.
Okay. And are pupils not handing in the reference language for the design?
We still have some pupils handing in the reference language. If I go and remove it, it's not so much for the web element, it is more for SDD. But yes, we still have pupils handing in the reference language. So what we need to remind everybody is that the reference language has a compiler, it is a language, and therefore it is not acceptable for design. We need to see pseudocode.
Okay, that's a biggie to watch out for. Okay, I'll keep my eyes open. That was a lot on design. We've kind of done a database design, web design, software design. That's a lot. Are we ready for implementation now, or is that us?
Well, there's one for web implementation.
Okay, let's go.
So in web implementation, again, the good news is that web is done really well.
Right.
Pupils do fab accessing the marks, but there's only 3 places that we need to watch out for.
Okay, I see that media queries not in an external CSS.
Sometimes the children put them into internal CSS. I think we saw that a couple of times. I think it was last year, so we need to be careful. And one of the annoying things is we can see the media query, but they don't provide evidence for us to show us it working.
Oh, that's hard, yeah.
So there's no screenshots printed out.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we get that. We need to see the different sizes.
Yep, okay, that kind of makes sense so far. So now we're looking at the code, and I'm looking at that. It's a form, some PHP, all the form elements are going into the session variables. Yeah.
Yep, and
Yeah.
that is the problem.
Yeah.
Pupils are taking all of the elements from the form,
Just putting them in.
not really understanding what's going on there, and they're popping them into session variables.
Mm-hmm.
Passwords as well. This is quite common.
Don't do that.
They're passing the passwords all over the website.
Don't do
So
that.
we need to, if you have children, we know that the session variables are taught, but if you've got pupils just now who are doing a web project, this might be a wee quick lesson in session variables, and just to go over that again.
Okay, so that was quite quite short about implementation on web, so that's good. Should we do some feedback just so we can check in with everybody? It's been a while since we've done that. So we're still kind of looking at implementation stage here. So let's kind of look at like the downfalls of database implementation. Can we have a look at that and see what are the issues with the downfalls of database implementation? Any markers want to take this on?
I'm happy.
Okay, go for it.
So the main thing that we have is that what is missing is evidence that the database matches the design.
So like pupils are showing a working database, but they're just like assuming that the design that they've done is enough to show that that's how they made it. But really, the people should be kind of like including SQL code. So here's the code, here's the design, and kind of showing off that both of them match.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that that's a pitfall. I would kind of expect most people to include that anyways. But again, I kind of go back to the question I mentioned earlier, but what if a pupil uses Access for their database? How can they include the code, especially if you've done the design using your advanced hire concepts and things like that, but you've done your database and Access, how can you show it matches?
Well, you're not often going to get match, especially when you go to proprietary software like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what we need to do is, if you're in something like Access, the screenshot of the design view, and we all know where that is, that's enough to show that it matches. Now, while Access might not say varchar, what we need to be aware of is physical versus conceptual. So what we mean by that is, of course, is that your design, your conceptual, there are some things that you have to change when you go to the physical and you actually do the creation.
Yeah,
so,
that's fine.
And we are aware that happens, that things can be different, but the design has to be the advanced higher SQL data types.
Okay.
Yes, it might be a bit different at implementation.
No, I get that. That's great. Okay, is there anything else that people need to look out for when implementing databases?
Oh, this I'm going to sound terrible. This is the bugbear.
Okay.
We see their amazing query design. We see the query inside the code. We even get screenshots of some of the queries working, but what we don't get is the befores, and we don't get the afters. So we will just see here, they'll show us an update afterwards, but we didn't see what the data looked like prior.
So you really can't see the effect of the query then if they're only giving you half the picture. You kind of need to see the database before the query runs, after it runs, then you can kind of see the difference.
That's it. That's exactly what we need. Everything that they're showing us, we need we need befores and we need afters so that we can compare and see that they are working.
Okay, I'm really glad you told me that, because I can imagine like a lot of pupils miss that out, because that will take them quite a bit of time to kind of gather that evidence up. So no, great. Thanks for letting me know that. That's amazing.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we're back with myself and we're looking at implementation for software projects. So again, there is good news on this because generally speaking, it's quite well done. And yes, do you know, candidates, when they come to actually writing the code in whatever major they're doing generally do a good job with it. As it might be that they haven't managed to do all of it with the 300-page, 65,000 combinations of, potential murderers and so on. But the bit that they write, they do a good job with. So here is from this year's course report. Let's have a look at that. So starting at the top left hand. So most candidates gained good marks for their implementation of their advanced higher concepts. Great. Many candidates gained good marks for their implementation of integration. However, those that used an interface provided in their development environment failed to show the evidence of how connectivity was implemented. And that comes back to what we've sort of referred to before in terms of say at the design stage. So that has carried through into the implementation stage. Pygame might be one of the one of the ones that are contributing to the failure on that point. So that has been something that generally that we've seen. The other big thing on this one is the lack of evidence from ongoing testing.
Okay, so it seems to be a kind of an issue with implementation stage as well.
Yeah, and they've obviously, since they've got working code in their SDD, it's doing what it's supposed to do. They've obviously been debugging it right the way through, haven't they? and fixed all the issues as they've been coming up. But the bit that we need to remind them of is as they are debugging and working with their advanced higher algorithms and their structures, then that in particular is where we want to see evidence of their ongoing testing. What they've had to fix, not the tiny things, but there's bound to have been something wrong, maybe in a logic error. So we want to see some evidence of that. We want to see them explaining how they fixed it and any references for what they've been doing there. For how to do it. Oh, and a wee reminder before we move on, please, 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 everybody, get your pupils to highlight the algorithms, the structures, the connection, everything that we want to be able to award the marks for in the implementation stage, because the coding can run to quite a number of pages, and it can be difficult and certainly time consuming to be going through looking for all of these features so that we can award the full marks for them. Debbie talked earlier about the magnifying glass and the the torch on the phone. That was me 2 years ago. I was waiting to get the big magnifying glass on to put over my eye, like in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, so as I could see things. So please get your candidates to make it as easy as possible.
And Fiona, I know this sounds really silly. Last year I had a full pack where pupils actually highlighted before they printed out onto mono, and I could barely read what was it. Please, proper highlighters. If you're doing the highlighting, which we appreciate, please do it after it's been printed.
Absolutely, yeah. Just give them out a packet of highlighters in the class and get them to do it. Yeah. And also, if they're doing like screen snips, then that's the other thing. It can be quite difficult to read, can't it? Watch out for your colour schemes that you've used, and watch out for the screen snips. Make sure they're big enough for us.
Okay, thanks. I think that seals off the implementation stage. We've kind of looked at web databases and software. Should we kind of go into some testing then?
For some of the considerations for testing, and again, I've come back to the course report from this year. So highlights there. Most candidates gained good marks for carrying out all the tests listed in their test plan, and we saw that they had carried them out and we saw some evidence provided for that, so that was good. A few candidates provided no description of the results of testing based on the test cases provided. So there were a few that just didn't give us the description there, so we couldn't award all the potential marks. One area in particular, when we go back to the fact the golden threads, and we go back to the analysis stage and pick up on the requirements, candidates quite often indicate that users' aesthetic requirements, users should find it, the interface easy to use, or it should be uncluttered, or things like that. And then we see when they get to testing, because they've got it in as a requirement, an end user requirement, when they go to test it, we don't really see them providing evidence of that. Because how are they testing it? If they don't do it as part of their persona testing with the test cases, they're not really providing us with any evidence. So probably a word of caution to them when they're writing out requirements in the analysis, to think carefully about that. And if it's an aesthetic thing about layout, uncluttered appearance, that kind of thing, to actually think that through and say, how do I prove that? How do I show that?
Okay.
So when it comes to the point about the lack of evidence here, so evidence to show, and this is straight from the markers, evidence to show that all requirements have been implemented, particularly things like gameplay. Here we are back at pie game again, aren't we? So evidence of gameplay, which quite often they don't provide to us. Evidence showing final totals or the final scores that they don't provide, they don't show us. Application of their advanced higher algorithm, their query results, so what Debbie was talking about that earlier, the before and after results. Their input validation error messages that we spoke about at the design stage, where they hadn't given us the details of what they would be, and then in fact they don't give us evidence of what the error message actually displayed.
Okay.
And authentication error messages. So basically a lack of detail of all of these things.
Okay.
Now, other things that have come up in feedback from markers, there has been a failure to use the functional and user requirements as the basis for their test plan. However, candidates have definitely been improving for the past few years with that. We used to see that as being quite a common thing, that it wasn't used, but in terms of like markers reports and things, the feedback getting communicated back has generally been quite well adopted, I think. So we have seen more and more that are advised for making your requirements into, a list, number them potentially, and then that becomes the basis for the test plan.
Yeah,
It's really easy for us to use then, and it's easy for the candidates, for the pupils to produce it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and that will tie in with the golden threads thing as well. Can you just get those
Exactly.
functional requirements just going through the whole project? So, and why not testing as well? Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, and that we can tie in with their test data.
Okay.
So of course, going right back to N5, they know about normal, extreme, and exceptional, don't they? We've taught them it from then, but it's a reasonably common thing that knowledge seems to disappear a wee bit, and they forget to use that data in their test plan and to tell us, here are the values I'm going to use, here's my normal, extreme, exceptional values, and then shows the results of that. So I would say it's a fairly easy one to fix. It's just maybe a wee bit time consuming, but it's not like, an impossibly hard task to do that, is it?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, that's another one where again it's maybe a slight lack of detail on it. the other big thing, the end user, the persona testing. So we have, but in the past years, Debbie, we've had quite a lot of fun at the pupils, at the personas that they have developed for us and the descriptions
Yeah.
that they put in.
Can only
And
imagine, yeah.
but there's a fine line there, isn't there? If their personas become overly humorous and unrealistic, then it probably, although it gives us a lot of fun, and there's not much fun to be had marking projects, believe me, but it does give us a bit of fun. It does raise a smile. But the thing that they miss out in amongst their lovely descriptions is they don't give us the technical ability of that person. They don't tell us, about their ability to use the software or the web interface or whatever it happens to be. So they need to remember and put in the technical ability. So that's a key thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and their persona, it should reflect a real end user. So not be too extreme. Tell us their technical ability, and it should be then they have to think of the tests, and that's from a black box point of view. This is an end user and how they would use it. So it's about what will the input and output for them, isn't it? So they need to mix their persona then with a list of tasks that the end user would be expecting to carry out, that end user, the 55-year-old divorcee that likes to play online games or whatever it happens to be. So to make sure that they've got that level of detail in it, a reminder that they don't then, that is instead of separate end user testing. Because again, we have seen a few candidates include that and have that separate, but that's what the persona is for. That is for testing it as if you were the end user. Okay. So basically, overall, the goal for the personas is test as if you were the imagined end user. Make sure you've got a list of well-defined tasks, and make sure that aligns with the persona's ability, the person's perceived ability, and what they want to do.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for going over testing there. No, that was great.
Okay.
If I have a look at a kind of evaluation. When I'm looking at evaluation, I just notice that my pupils kind of like rush through as fast as they can.
Absolutely.
The end is in sight, and
do you know,
they've done the important bit anyways.
When they get to the evaluation bit, do you not think so?
Yeah,
from N5 up, they want to just rush through that.
Yeah, I kind of think it doesn't really get the attention it deserves. And is that something that you see at your end when you're an SK market, when the papers come in? Can you look at the evaluations and see, this has just been rushed?
I think so, yeah. Do you agree with me, Debbie?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say in the past couple of years it has got better. The message of has got better, the standard has got better on it, but it's still there's potential there, shall we say, for improvement.
Okay, so how then, right, what are the most common kind of mistakes that the pupils will make in their evaluations then?
Well, one of the biggest issues is a lack of the discussion around future maintenance.
Okay.
And how the project could be updated or improved over time. So they know about future maintenance. We've taught them about corrective, imperfective, and adaptive, of course. But then they fail to mention these terms or use these terms, and they fail to relate them to their own project.
Okay.
They almost go back to National 5 answers, don't they? Talking about white space, talking about indentation.
Just getting rushed.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And then if indeed they do use one of these terms, they tend to talk about it in a more abstract way, the way they've probably learned it, in terms of, an abstract, as opposed to applying it to their project. So for instance, if we're talking about, let's say, adaptive maintenance, and adaptive is about updating the project to work with new technology or changing requirements.
Okay.
But we
Okay.
want them to tell us for their project that they've done, for their web project or their database or their software, about something more specific that would apply to that project.
Right. Okay. So
So
you're
not
kind
in the abstract, but in the applicable to the thing that they have written.
but it needs to be in the context of the project. All right. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the word. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I totally get it. Okay. What else are kind of people's, what else should they include in their evaluations then? If we're looking at future maintenance, is there anything else that maybe isn't done very well in evaluation?
Yeah. So let's say a pupil created a database system. They could discuss how corrective maintenance would involve fixing any unexpected errors that might arise after the deployment. Perfective maintenance might include adding a search filter to improve usability. Adaptive maintenance could mean upgrading the database to support new data formats in the future.
Okay. No, I've got it. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so that's the kind of maintenance stuff down. Anything else? Oh, I recognise that.
Evaluation, basically, it's not just a box ticking exercise.
Right. Okay.
It should relate to the project that they have just completed. And we can see evidence here of some, of an actual one that's been done. So let's have a look here. We've got design, implementation, testing, evaluation, and we've got it labeled.
When it comes to evaluation, is there any kind of people that just write down things like, that my project worked and you don't have any evidence of that? I mean, is there kids that are just kind of that lying about their project when it comes to the evaluation?
Well, there are pupils that take a very optimistic view, shall we say. What was that the phrase they used in Parliament once upon a time? It was about being economical with the truth, something like that.
Right, yeah.
You're not allowed to
Who was that?
say MPs are liars. It's something like that, isn't there?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe they've been a wee bit economical with the truth of how their project actually, how well it works, or the fact that maybe a feature of it does not work. And that they've had a problem with it and not been able to fix it in the time available.
Right. So, I mean, if something doesn't work, do they need to just mention that? And if a requirement wasn't met, should they bring that up in their evaluation?
Sorry. They should bring it up in their evaluation. They should just be honest with us.
Okay.
And tell us that, I had an issue with this. In the same way as we talk about at N5 and at higher, don't we? We explain to them when they come to do that the evaluation write-up, or they're discussing something, they can discuss something that hasn't worked or that they haven't been asked to do in that project, but could be improved on, or means that their project at N5 isn't robust. So it's exactly the same principle in advanced higher. Tell us about the issue that you had problems with. Tell us about, yes, absolutely the successes that you've got, but the limitations. So if you didn't manage to meet one of the requirements, or you only partially met it, then explain what bit you met, what bit you didn't meet.
Okay.
And so be honest with your evaluations. The worst thing that they can do is to say, my project is fit for purpose because it meets functional requirements 1 to 6 and user requirements 1 to 4 or whatever, and when it plainly doesn't, and we don't see the evidence of it meeting those requirements.
Okay, so I guess people should just own their shortcomings, reflect that in their evaluation. Brilliant, I've got that. Great, thanks very much. Can I kind of do a wee recap here? I think that's us kind of went through the whole process here. So that's amazing. If we kind of have a look at the kind of slide here, we're just going to kind of have a look at some kind of final feedback for us. So you can kind of see on the board we have keep we're kind of working on this to help teachers. We are teachers as well, and we've just got a kind of feedback form here that we would love to hear from you. So what's going to help you kind of move forward? What you're going to do going back into school? Like, how's things going to change? How's this going to kind of improve you? Okay. What held us back, tonight? Is there anything you want us to do? And, is there anything that we can do differently? We are teachers here to try and help as many teachers as possible. And we are focusing on advanced higher this year. We're the advanced higher group. So please take an opportunity to let us know what you need. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and put that in place. And if this isn't the form for it, we would love you to post it just now. We can read it just now. We can even discuss it just now. But we've also got the mighty kind of STACS Connected form. So a lot of design there. I was having a lot of read.
Absolutely, Gordon. Love those golden threads.
Yeah.
Debbie, I was hoping you would have the actual threads with you tonight, though.
We'll need to get some for somewhere. What, Gordon, you've wrote KISS principle. Sorry, did I know that? What's that? What have I?
The KISS principle. Keep it simple.
Got it.
Stupid.
Yeah.
I asked for that, didn't I?
Too many projects that are overly complex, trying to solve far too many things. Stick to the advanced higher principles. Stick to what is it that's going to make it an advanced higher project. Don't try and go off and do a game, because that just distracts away from the advanced higher.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Gordon, I now have nightmares or bad dreams about projects that involve web scrapers. I'm afraid that's my new game, Bet Noir.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the thing that's causing me sleepless nights. I'll say no more than that about my candidate this year.
Yeah, Markers, can I kind of draw attention here? We've got someone down here. I can't see who wrote that, so sorry I can't see your name. But they said, can we see some exemplar projects now? I'm going to ask. I'm not a marker here, but I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, is the concern that if you show an exemplar project, you're going to get that project coming back to you the next year 6 or 7 or 8 times? Or why do you think maybe there are exemplar projects on SQA Secure and they're for teachers' eyes only, hence why they're on SQA Secure?
Yeah.
What do you think the reason that we've kind of limited the amount of exemplar projects that are out and about?
Well, I think the reason that you brought up there, the fact that if there was a project there and we thought, oh, that's a good example of a software design project, or then yes, is that going to be replicated in many different forums? I wonder if perhaps that, or even peer projects, that perhaps there is a scope for sharing small parts. So that it's not a whole project that that we can jump on and say, right, I'm going to do one just like that, because that seems to have worked well. But sort of small extracts of it, most of the projects. I don't know if that would be helpful.
We'll speak to Gordon and Morag and see what we can do.
Yeah, and see what's possible on that one. Yeah.
A couple of people have said that it's been a hard one after a long day.
Aye, definitely.
Yes,
There was a lot.
I can relate to that. Yes.
Let me just give you the thought behind it. It was, what can we do quickly to give a bit of an impact? Where could we quickly give you something where you could go, here's a couple of marks that I can talk over with my pupils and say, here you can get these extra marks to help. And again, I know we're not talking about them losing marks and stuff, but about getting these marks. So
beforehand, didn't
it? Sorry, Debbie, can I cut in on that? Yes. We need to be very careful with that.
Yes, I know.
The guidance for the project is that we should not be giving direction to students of that kind of nature. It needs to be their own work. We can give generic advice to the class.
Yes, But that's what I was meaning. This would be generic. This would not be used giving we'd never give individual advice. Everybody, hopefully everybody knows that. It would be a whole class thing. Here are some common places where people can fall down. But yes, as Gordon is saying, you're never looking at a pupil's piece of work and saying, here's where you've gone wrong and here's how we improve on that. We don't do that. So that was why it was that is why it was a bigger session tonight. The next ones won't be next ones won't be as intense as this, promise.
Yeah. Okay, should we, is any other question, anything we need to look at here? Everything felt valuable, brilliant.
We know we put out the survey to everybody. Thank you so much for giving us feedback. That's amazing.
Yes.
Things that we looked at was the big code question, as we call it, and possibly getting some extra examples of some to be able to give out.
So that everybody's got an actual takeaway from it, because it is especially at this time of year, we appreciate the time commitment that you're giving up to come along to these. So we do want to try and give you things back that you can use.
Yep,
absolutely. The main one that we thought we would do would be something getting in person and showing people how to some PHP, possibly how to do the connections to databases from web and from sorry, I'm losing it in SDD.
Yeah, for basically setting up our virtual servers.
Thank you. It's a long day for us too. Some people have said that that's not as high in their priority, so we're open to what you would want us to do for a May session.
Yeah, if there's a more useful and more beneficial way to spend that session.
It could be timelines and stuff. It could be when do you start projects. It could be how do we organise the course. And then if people could please have a good think about what you would like us to be helping with next year, 25-26. And a wee reminder, STACS Connect is there. If you post in it, we will get it. We will reply to you. There's all of our emails down the left hand side. Feel free to get in touch with us. If we don't know the answer, we've got access to Gordon, we've got access to Morag. We can always find an answer from somewhere for you.
Yes.
So please just get in touch.